Welcome back to U.S. Farm Report from here at the University of Illinois. A beautiful fall day outside. Who would have thought we would see some of these record temps, which is, we planned on this time of year moving things inside because the weather is so unpredictable. But speaking of the weather being unpredictable, El Nino, talking about that really coming into play. What does that mean for production in South America? What does that mean for production in North America? Do you have any good analog years to compare it to?
Well, I describe myself as a bit of a El Nino, La Nina skeptic. I've been chasing those impacts in the grain markets for most of my career, and they're just not as reliable as people would wish them to be. There's still, I think, some tendencies that we can point to. So with El Nino this winter, the U.S. Corn Belt will likely be a little drier and warmer. Maybe that's some of what we're seeing now. South America, the El Nino can be associated with higher rainfall like you're seeing in parts of Brazil. But overall, I don't find it to be a great impact, maybe small.
Heading into next year, though, you look at the corn stocks picture and the scenario that we're setting on today. Do you think at this point, based on that, corn prices are too cheap?
Not really. In a world where we have 2 billion bushel carryout and sort of nothing that would lead us to think that we're going to draw those stocks down in a meaningful way in a 1 to 2 year time horizon, that's a scenario where we have what we've seen over the last few months, which is corn prices kind of bumping along in a pretty limited range at, what are now, I think we can sort of say, historically low prices given sort of what we've observed in the last 3 to 5 years.
So this year, though, when you look at harvest, I know it's winding down for some, but it's kind of sluggish for others. Does it pay to store grain in 2023?
It can. I think farmers really need to think specifically about their individual situation because storage costs do vary a lot. We've done a lot of work on benchmarking farm marketing and farms inventory and storage performance. We're doing that work in association with the Illinois Farm Business Farm Management Association. They're great partners in sort of connecting us with farm level records and farm level data. What we found is that those costs vary a lot across farms. Some farms, if you're in a situation where, you're not sort of financially constrained, you've got access to relatively cheap capital, your balance sheet looks good, and storage can really pay. Now, what we're seeing in the market are carries that are pretty, limited. That might pay for some, but not others, especially if you think about interest costs being, say, going out to March, maybe 15 cents a bushel for corn, more than that for soybeans.
Jonathan, going back to the Farm Bill discussion, the biggest sticking point has been this reference price and raising the reference price. So are you in the camp that across the board we do need to fight? What's the price tag right now that some are throwing out in order to raise reference prices?
Well, we don't know exactly. We're in probably a range between $20 and $50 billion, the way the Congressional Budget Office scores it, which you have to remember is a 10-year cost. So it is a huge number because you're dealing with 10 years and a lot of acres, particularly for crops like corn and soybeans and wheat.
$50 billion is what you just said. Up to $50 billion.
That's what was in the news stories recently, that the proposal they were looking to cover was about a $50 billion cost.
Do you think that's needed in the next Farm Bill?
Well, I think one of the things I struggle with that I think is a real puzzle on this is most of the acres and many of the crops are going to see a reference price increase because of the way the program was redesigned in 2018. So these last few years of high prices, so corn, soybeans, wheat, those are going to get pulled up anyway automatically. And so for this to be the sticking point, I think it's only one of them. It's the kind of internal in the committee sticking point is a bit puzzling, to say the least, when we can see that automatic increase happening with the current design of the program. So why fight over this extraordinarily expensive change that doesn't seem to have the need in many of the crops for most of the acres in the country?
And when you look at some of those price outlooks, we're talking about, if we don't see a farm bill until late 2024, new farm bill, or 2025, what do commodity prices look like at that time? But you've recently done some adjustments to long-term price outlooks. Kind of what are your forecasts right now, Scott?
Well, Daryl Good and I took a look at this all the way back in 2007, 2008 and made some projections bravely back then. And they've turned out to actually be pretty solid. So we projected long-run average price of corn in Illinois of $4.60 and $11 for soybeans 15 years ago. And I don't think we would change those today. I think that that's a good planning base, but you always have to remember that history shows that you can go a long time above those averages and you can go a long time below them. I mean, the 4 and 5 years above or below is not unusual.
Yeah, really good reminder. All right, well, three of you, thank you so much for joining us this weekend. We really appreciate it. All right, stay with us. We'll have much more on U.S. Farm Report when we come back.